We're officially live. Um, when we get around to your section, Andrew, I think having you screen share is going to be the easiest and cleanest thing.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. I've got a actually. I mean, okay, I can screen share after that, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Just because I'm pretty much streaming my straight Discord window. So we're technically live. Give folks some time to settle in. Mm, nice background there, Andrew, with all of your houseplants.
This is the best. This is the best I got right now. I'm not at my studio, so
I
figured
like
some
all the little
plants are
plants. Yeah.
Yeah, I like your plants a lot.
the actual pots are the really the most amazing part because they are
Does one have a face?
um
Multiple have a face.
they they're all beautiful ladies.
Mm.
They're like these really cool illustrations of women, and it's
Oh,
this is my girlfriend's place, and she's got a great aesthetic for all
oh
the little
yeah.
like this is like a little lips and the eyes are closed. This is a I don't know some sort
Like
of
a portrait.
antebellum portrait, and this is just a lady loving a plant, a planter of a lady loving a plant.
Call me
Meta.
It's
basic,
very
but
it's very self-aware.
I like the copper
It's
one.
awesome.
You are
Copper one's
basic,
cool.
Michael.
This one's very adorable.
Oh.
Almost looks like you,
Aw.
Steph. It reminds me of you.
My signature actually used to be like bright red lipstick. I've toned down my colors since then. But literally all the time actually at Riot, like I would walk around with like really fucking poppin' red lipstick. So much so that my now husband's mother gave me like a red lipstick kit for Christmas one year because like she was like, "That's what you wear." And then I was like, maybe I should change it.
Immediately after the gift, I'm over this. I'm done.
I was like, I'm too
It,
pigeonholed.
it got Peter's attention, right? So it
That's
worked
true.
out.
All a part of my plan.
Yeah.
Cool. Why don't we start with some intros? We have a first time, long time treehouser, a first time stream attendee,
Or
stream guest,
stream
uh,
stream guy.
stream guy, uh, Andrew Miller. Andrew, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. My name is Andrew. I am an animator, tech artist, and various other person at Treehouse here. I started out at a company called Floyd County Productions here in Atlanta that produced the TV show Archer. I was an animator and a background artist and flat kind of Flash guy. Flash was really popular then. Everyone was dabbling in Flash animation, so I was doing some of that stuff. That's kind of what got me in, and then I'm also a musician, and I took some time to tour around for a while and freelanced here and there with various other companies, doing like illustrations for kids' books and some animation for a couple little like commercials, things like that, and then got into games. Mitch, my brother, who's the creative director here, uh, dragged me into this, and it's been a really wonderful ride to get to work with him and a bunch of my really good friends, Ben and Billy, who I've been really um, good friends with for a long time. Went to college with Ben, and we've done music together. And Billy was our touring front of house guy for a long time. So it's a big family. So and now I'm here at Treehouse doing animation and you know trying to put all of my skills to the best use and make something look great.
Andrew does a little bit of literally everything. If that background didn't tell you, he is also part of the audio crew that you met in the last stream. Also, pretty much anything that moves in the game, Andrew works on. So, visual
Mhm.
effects, the popular sunrise and sunset and clouds in the sky, materials work, um, So yeah, which includes the like the way the ocean looks and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But today, well, after like the second section of this stream, Andrew's going to be talking about sort of his home bread and butter, and also something that's getting a lot of work right now, which is animation, which will be fun. And then Andrew covers a crap load, so especially if you guys have questions, like please post them and future topics. But there's frankly probably a lot of separate topics that we could come back around and be like, "Yo, Andrew, how did you approach this?" So hopefully the first of several sort of topics there. Um, but first, before we get into that sort of deep topic and go through like stuff in engine and stuff like that, we just wrapped up a playtest uh yesterday morning. We just wrapped up our most recent playtest. It is the last playtest that we're going to be doing before a sort of major release we have at the end of the year. And so Steph, our producer, who you guys have heard from many a time, is here to sort of give sort of like a recap of like how did the playtest go, what were some of the things that we started to see and hear and learn, and what are we working on next. So Steph, I'll hand it to you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Steph. As you know, yeah, face of the playtest, I think, typically for y'all. Also, producer, project management, releases, QA, UX, who knows? Depends on the day. Um, but yeah, so we had, like Michael said, a recent playtest that just closed. Really awesome. We had a ton of new content in there that I think everyone hopefully enjoyed playing. And we got a ton of great feedback and visibility on stuff that we've been working on. So I'm really excited to share some of the things that we saw and some of the things that we're planning to work on. And I hope you'll come back for the demo to see some of these awesome things improve. Um, so one of the big things in this playtest that we had was our first time playtesting a new biome, the Reef, which is now our second biome. We've had some like extra maps in the build before for really legacy playtesters, but they were never like complete. They were kind of like very just like placed in, just to kind of see how it feels. But this is our first like attempt at making like a real like playable space that had all of the progression and like leveling and all of the items and all of that stuff. So it's really awesome to be able to like ship that to people and really see what it looks like when we kind of add a whole new biome and a whole new set of playable content, how people play with it, what they're excited to see. Um, so it was awesome. We got a lot of great, I think, both feedback and bugs about the ability to progress through the biome, which was really good to learn because we've, again, only shipped one of these before. So a lot of learning in terms of like what will block people from being able to progress through it. A lot of positive feelings about how different it already feels. So for people that don't know or didn't see some of the previous dev blogs or dev streams where we talked about the reef. The reef is kind of like this coral canyon type of biome, very like vertical. It's where you get introduced to the glider, which is someday going to be like a really fun tool. It's a little placeholder right now. There's like updrafts. There's razor coral that explode and make you bleed. New resources, new ecology. So hopefully a really different feeling and vibe than the first biome, and people definitely felt that. They were really excited about how different it feels, even though things are still currently placeholder. Excited to see how it's going to change as we continue to update like the visuals and the plants and the creatures and all of the things within it. So we're really excited that to keep working on this, and we're definitely going to have a lot of changes. I think by the next time you see it, this is kind of a very first version of this biome. We really hope to like spend a lot more time making the level feel like more unique, putting all kinds of hidey holes and findables in for you to find, and definitely a lot of new art assets coming. Those little goopy trees were definitely a placeholder in case you didn't know. Um, Another thing that we did that we got a lot of feedback on, and we're really excited to see some of the changes go in, was spirits, both like the little helper dudes in your base and what they do, and also the spirit anchor, which is kind of like the magical hub of your base. We made a lot of changes based off of previous feedback, actually, from our last couple of playtests, even before this one, based off of the importance of the spirit anchor and how it's supposed to feel versus like how it actually felt. Um, how maybe there were too many spirits or they kind of all did little things individually, but it's kind of hard to understand how they came together. The rewards that they give. People liked the concept of them, love having little helpers in their base, but it wasn't quite strong enough with how helpful they were and why and what they did. So we made big changes there. And especially people I think who had playtested the old versions really loved that the spirits now live in the spirit anchor, and that's kind of like really now a true hub. Both you don't have to like manage them, but it also kind of gives you like the nice little catalog of all the little guys you've collected, and people seem to really enjoy that. Um, and I think some of the clarity we added in terms of like telling you what they did, which I think we only kind of did before. And also that they actually, we have less of them now that do more of the jobs and unlock new things for you too that they didn't before. So people seemed really excited about that and liked those changes. We still had some feedback that we wish they did a little bit more, or like that there's some that don't do as much as some of the others. And so we actually have even new content coming in the demo, where they will give you extra rewards that like weren't in this last playtest. So we're already acting on that feedback, which is really great to hear. We also got a lot of feedback on the boat. I think a lot of people that played, especially last playtest versus this one, the boat used to be like pretty far back in progression, and we were seeing that a lot of people, spent a lot of time on the home island before ever venturing out, which is great because people enjoyed it. But our game was always supposed to be a seafaring survival crafting game, and so the lot like not going onto the water is kind of like a fail case. And people I think like to adventure on the water, so we wanted to like set people up to actually do that earlier into the game and be able to like have their first voyage, which people did like, being able to like actually adventure out and go on their first voyage sooner. But because we moved the boat up, I think we got a lot more feedback on it, which is great. Um, Definitely some feedback on the controls and how they work, how it's challenging to pilot as a solo player. So those are things that we're kind of tracking. Some improvements that we're going to hope to make before the demo, and some improvements that we'll probably have to work on a little longer. But we got a lot of great feedback just about piloting generally, what could be easier and better about it. We plan to make some improvements to the camera controls, to the controls generally and their responsiveness, and then eventually target some of that. As a solo sailor, what do I do? Um, so that was also really great to get so much feedback on that this time. Um, and lastly, and most obviously, we got so many helpful bug reports, including a really sneaky one where we thought we removed the weight limit from the boat, but it secretly had one the whole time, invisibly, which was horrible when I read that in the survey, but thank you for the people who commented that, because we found the spot. Um, so it's so helpful for our small team to have people playtesting the build, finding these bugs, helping us understand like the quality of the game. It's irreplaceable. So thank you everybody for playtesting so much and being so diligent about your feedback and your bug reports. Those are kind of the things that like came out as major themes. There was a lot of different feedback, and we're always looking for, for what to kind of follow up on or what big changes we want to make. So definitely, there's a lot more we'll be looking at. But I just wanted to share some of the biggest pieces with you guys. And I really hope that you'll come back and play the demo because I think we have so many big updates already. It's already changed so much since the build you saw, and I'm really excited to see your reactions to it. So I hope you come back for the demo.
Steph has mentioned this demo a few times, but in case you don't know
Demo,
what it
demo.
is, it has been an announcement we've said bluntly in our Discord, but we'll probably make a bigger deal about. Like on, I think Monday is when we're probably going to post up a little more broader news about it. Any signal boosting would be super duper appreciated. But we are going to be launching our public Steam demo for the first time ever on December 4th. It's right around the corner. It'll be the moment where anyone on Steam can play, which is why a lot of this like bug reporting and feedback is so helpful right now because that's like immediately coming into this sort of hardening phase that we're in of killing lots of bugs, working on performance, adding like fidelity and polish in the areas that need it most. And then hopefully, like, introducing Voyagers to a lot more people who could be interested. We're also going to be at a game show telling people about this, which I've learned I'm not supposed to say what game show it is until the 18th on Monday. So if you want to know, just check our Discord because we did already say it
Oopsies.
there. And then at the next stream before that event happens on December 4th, we'll give you all the details. And again, spreading the word to your friends, inviting people in to play the demo. The demo is multiplayer. It'll have up to 5 people for now, so we can sort of keep a handle on performance. It's going to be entirely the first biome, and you can just invite in anyone who has a Steam account can play. So there'll be the next moment where we really want to crack open a lot more like friends playing together, a lot more survival crafting diehards, and hopefully spreading the word about the game. So we're really excited for that point. It's a pretty intense period of work for us right now. It's like whack-a-mole with bugs and a ton of other issues that we've been like kind of dying to get to for a while. So it feels good that we're finally getting there. It's also an intense run, so I am very excited to for you guys to see just how much has changed even from this build that we just showed you guys. Um, so with that, let's get over to our second topic with Andrew as our resident expert. But yeah, anything that moves in the game, like I mentioned, sort of runs through Andrew. And so out of all the topics we could pop into, today we're going to be talking about character animation. And as I think Andrew was thinking about this topic, we want to show stuff that's like in our game, of course, but it's also kind of hard to talk about without talking about how animation works for games. So Andrew's going to sort of take us through some of that and then show some of like how our characters look and how they were created and how they function. So yeah, Andrew, if you don't mind screen sharing, I can adjust the screen to make sure we catch it.
I can 100% screen share. I have the
Let's
power.
see. All
Okay,
right.
let's do this. Let's see, we'll do this. Here we go.
Hey, there we go.
Peel this off and hide that. Cool. All right, here we are. Um,
Let me zoom in a bit.
yeah, can you see this?
Oh,
Is this framed correctly? We good? What am I streaming Discord by any chance?
no, you're good.
Perfect. I love it. Yeah, so I'm Andrew. This is maybe the third time I've introduced myself and been introduced, but I'm Andrew. Um, First, just thank you guys so much for moving around in our game. There's a lot of different movements in there that I've had a lot to do with, and I have a lot of aspirations to continue to push and make it better and smoother and more exciting and satisfying. And um, there's a lot to cover, and I'm getting to it. If you don't like a thing, I promise you, I'm on it. I'm on the case. But thank you so much for running around and jumping and killing things, because and please give me all the feedback you've got so that I can make it better every day. Um, but yeah, I am the technical and regular animator here at Treehouse. And like I mentioned earlier, I also do a bunch of other stuff, but today we are focusing on animation. And every, I think animators in games and films are probably the nerdiest, I'd say, of all of the developers because we notice every little detail and um, down to the way a single eye twitches and run cycles, all those different fine nuances are the things that make something really special. And a lot of times they're not even really noticed, they're felt. But our job is to go in with the most magnified of magnifying glasses and try and learn how to quantify that feeling through the acting and the feel and the overall delivery of whatever the message is, whether it's in a film or a game or anything else that needs to move. So with that, I nerd out on games that have or certain games that have just some of the most incredible animation ever. And the first of those is Jack and Daxter. That was, I think, the game that made me interested in animation at all. It was old I think PS1 that it was so far ahead of the curve. A lot of squash and stretch, a lot of exaggerated animation. You could feel the character in every little piece of that game. And, that Naughty Dog knows what they're doing, and they absolutely, that game just made me want to be an animator in any media. Um, and yeah, so Crash Bandicoot is another one of those early PlayStation games. Ratchet and Clank, early, like they just had this really stylistic, exaggerated style that was just so exciting to me. Um, I think the two odd ones here, because of how limited the animation is, are probably Don't Starve and Darkest Dungeon. But what I love about them is they focus so much on individual posing, because that is what animation is all about, is the frames that you do see, the poses are satisfying, full of action, and that's what I'm really excited about bringing to our game. That's something that's really been a focus of mine, is to try and infuse character into every little thing that you do, whether it's gathering or even just sitting down. I want it to be something that feels emotional and evocative. Obviously, Hi-Fi Rush is just a mind melting feat of animation and color and character, and it's awesome. And Spiritfarer is just one of the most heartfelt, beautiful games I've ever seen in my entire life. So these are the types of games that really inspire me and make me, try and push our game further and further as far as character goes. Um, but with that being said, the first step in any great animation is making sure that the character you're animating is great. The character is going to be driving the way it moves, what types of emotions you need to accommodate. The character itself is the animation, and if you're connecting with that character, it's because the way they look and the way they move and the way they deliver their lines are all perfectly in sync. Um, and luckily for our game, we have a lot of incredible characters that Mitch has just drummed up out of the ether. And every time I get one of his designs, I lose it, because I want to animate this so bad. Um, it's one of the most exciting things in the world to see his animation or his illustrations and ideas, and turn them into something that you guys can all feel and interact with. Um, so yeah, this is just a wild spread of some of the amazing creatures we have in our game and stuff you guys get to look forward to, because some of these things aren't in but are definitely in the works. So yeah, the character itself is super huge. um, After that, we have to figure out how to get this stuff in the game, so we need a character artist to do that, and we're not going to be covering that here, but they do a bunch of magic, and that magic allows me to then rig and animate. But in game, we've got all these amazing assets that we get to use. Thanks to the incredible character artists we've had, both present and past. Um, yeah, not that they're gone. They've moved on to bigger and other projects, but their efforts are still felt in the game every single day. And they've done an incredible job capturing the character and Mitch's concepts, and really given me a lot to work with in terms of, you know, how am I going to make these things feel and move in a way that is, again, satisfying and exciting, and you know, keeps you wanting to play over and over and over and over again. Um, so yeah, so we get the character in game. We've got a mesh. We've got an amazing asset. What we need to do next is then talk to the designers, figure out how this thing needs to affect the player's behavior. Is it an enemy? Is it an NPC? Is it someone that helps you? Is it someone that hurts you? Those are the questions that we have to start out with, and then we get into the fine nuances of specific move sets and, small quirks, things like that that need to sell the experience in a seamless and natural way. But once we've got all that figured out, pardon my Slack messages. Once we've got all that figured out, then I get to do my job. I get to start rigging things. So what I want to start off with is showing you the Blender rig that I made very, very, very long time ago. This thing has gone through its paces and has served me well. And it's got all kinds of different things. Um, we have the ability to add weapons. So this control here, let me see if I can find a good tool for you real quick. We got a pickaxe. We can move the pickaxe, and what we can do is tell the hands to grab that pickaxe after I do this. Um, Please pardon the memeable moment here,
I say I hope someone's
but
capturing this. You clip it.
I do too, because this is what I get to work. This is what I have to work with every day. Is it starts out like this, and then
You
I
have to
move
have
these
true
things
vision.
around. You have to know what you want really, really clearly. Otherwise, things go horribly awry. But this is what I do. I get an action figure, and I get to start posing this thing and turning this into something that is not goo and ridiculous. So I won't bore you with trying to pose that right now, but what I can do is start showing you a few of the actually recently we added a spear to the game. Um, and what I'll do is turn all this off. Oops. And then do this and see if I can find the spear here. Give me 2 seconds. I may
I'm
have
always amazed by animation because I feel like it is like one of the most technical art subdisciplines. It's like insane.
it's definitely a challenge. But let me see if I can get this working here. I might have to go to another animation because I mean this is what you would all expect, right?
This is
This is
like
what
what
we're
peak
hoping for.
performance looks like.
This is peak performance. Let me see if I can find maybe this is the old spear. Let's go to the new stuff. Um, Here we go. Spear. This is here we go. So here we go. This is working the way we want. And we've got how many frames here? 40 frames. So through all that posing and messing around and failing horribly, magically, you end up getting a very cool idle animation. Um, and this is the start of everything for me. I start with the initial pose. This is where the character lands. This is the default space that we want this tool specifically to return to. So from here, I'll go to a run cycle. And I think this will be the correct run cycle. I think this, yes, I think so. What I'll do for the, so what we use in the game is something called root motion. It allows us to keep feet from sliding and looking kind of weird. Sometimes games you see feet like the character's running too fast for how they're moving, but we're able to use minus some of these controls that I don't have properly selected here. Um, we'll have root motion that allows us to bake in distances so that when the character runs, we know exactly how far they've traveled and at what speed. And then we can bring those curves into the engine and drive the speed of the animation based on the values we have in the engine rather than the other way around. So the run cycle will be the first step in getting that sort of behavior working. And then from there, we do all the transitional stuff where we start and then we stop and then we do jumps and we do pivots, turning left and right, attacks, all of those various behaviors. And then we stitch those together in Unreal with an animation blueprint that puts all the logic together and allows us to put them in the right place at the right time. Um, so yeah, our character is probably the most complicated creature we have in the entire world because of the various things you can do. You can do a ton of different things. You can have a sword out without a torch, a sword with a torch, and I need to be able to make animations that can support all of those behaviors and be seamless and have logic that if the torch dies, then it goes away and you go back to your regular sword, all these different things. So that's where the technical side of the animation comes in. And frankly, I enjoy doing this part because I get to do wild and ridiculous things all the time, and it's super, super fun. So every time I get finished with the logic side, I'm so eager to get back into the actual animation side of stuff because it's a great time. I think we all played with action figures at some point, and this is the best version of that because you can actually save everything you do and reuse it and make it part of your experience in a video game, and that's really, really magical for me. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the overview of our character. There's, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of animations that I've done for each individual situation in the game. But there's more than just the character. And what I wanted to ask, and I don't really have access to the chat, is
Oh,
there any particular
There's a
character. Uh-huh.
you got a question actually, so I can read for
Okay,
the chat for you.
I would love to answer a question.
There you go.
Here, I can put it.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
one right there at the bottom.
Okay. Will your animation framework allow easy replacement of action animations such as later in games? 100%. So our setup is really modular. So we have what we call animation layers, and we have a base blueprint that has all of our base logic from velocity to acceleration, direction moving, jump speed, jump height, all these different things that we can drive whether we are going to one animation or another. And then what we have in between that is an animation layer, like basically a bridge that then communicates with another animation blueprint where all the actual animation data is. And that's what we mess with. That's what I mess with as an animator most, is I am able to create multiple versions of that item anim layer, anim blueprint, and the logic is set up to where there's slots for all of the different movements. And I can just, based on the tool, replace all of those animations. So the logic would be if I'm using a pickaxe, it pulls up the pickaxe animation blueprint. If I pull up the sword, it pulls up the sword animation blueprint. So the logic stays the same in the base, but the animations that are being used are what changes. And it's been super, super helpful because, in survival crafting games, you have a lot of tools. You've got a lot of different um, actions you do with different tools, but the basic logic for how you're moving and changing direction pretty much stays the same. So it keeps us from having to rebuild that every single time and just replacing animation assets rather than redoing bits of logic. So it's super scalable and modular, and I can just change any new data. Like we have a skimmer now, which isn't part of the base movement set. I can add a little bit of logic in the base blueprint, and then it'll give me all the options for skimming with or without a tool or whatever in each of those consecutive tool blueprints. So yeah, it's very scalable in that sense.
Um, this is just to pop in for a second. I mean, like, obviously the game is not out yet, but for people who've been testing a while, you've actually seen a lot of this iteration and change over time as is. Like some of the new animations, like I remember when Andrew first added a bunch of like the new swimming animations, there was a bunch of transitions where there was no data because he hadn't authored them yet. So I
Mhm.
remember a bunch of people were like, oh, hey, I just suddenly pop up into like this neutral T pose in between those transitions. Well, it's like, yeah, because there is actually zero animation for that yet. And then like the next
Right.
playtest after, all those were gone because Andrew authored them. And so you guys actually have seen those scale with the game over time, not even touching like adding new tools or like this was actually quite some time ago, but like changing jump height is like a game
Mhm.
mechanic thing that you change a number, but to make it look visually right, Andrew had to do a bunch of work to make that look sensical again.
Mhm. Yeah, so sorry I keep you guys waiting a lot, but I promise you I'm on it. I'm working on it ever so steadily. So yeah, but so I guess with that being said, are there any other characters you'd like to see rig wise that you've seen in game that you're curious about? What it looks like in Blender or even in Unreal, because we're using some control rig stuff as well, if anybody's curious. So what I would like to do is engage the audience. Does anybody have any particular characters, creatures, anything you'd like to see? Bullwog, please.
Instant vlog.
I think I
Bullwog
might have
FS.
known. Let me see if I've got that. I think I can pull it up. Don't save that because that's bad. Critters. Nope. Oh, don't see that. There's some snails here. Pets. Oh, here we go.
Look
Oh,
at the
there he
baby.
is. There he is. This is our boy. And let's see. Let me just that's him sleeping. That's what he does. This is our guy. I'm curious. I have not opened this up. Actually, thank you for this because I've not opened this up in a long, long time. Um, let's see here. What else do I have?
The audience says, "Blessed
Oh
be this dev stream."
yeah. Yeah, I've got this is super fun. I loved this. This was just although his little eyes are not working. But I can make him
There you
look
go.
at you
Oh my
guys if
god.
you want. There
That's
you
a
go. Hi,
little
hello.
creepy.
He's just excited for you. Hello. Yeah, and let's see, what else do I have? I've got all kinds of fun stuff. Can make him wink
Did you
at
ever
you.
make him scoot his butt on the floor? That's the real question.
Oh my god. Cheery, clip that.
Absolutely.
This is how we go viral.
Absolutely.
And he twerks.
Mhm, mhm. But yeah, so this is him. I've got a lot of fun controls. He can get a little sassy with you. Um, what's actually really interesting is this is the maybe this is the first rig. Actually, no, a lot of this is the same rig as the player character as well. You can see some of these controls are the same. So to save myself a bunch of heartache, I will actually go in and reuse a bunch of the like spine sections of characters, so I don't have to rebuild that from scratch. So this is actually a Frankenstein of the character rig that has now turned into a Bullwog. So they we all share DNA, which is nice. Um, so yeah, there's the Bullwog. Um,
Is
Get him
there
sleeping.
is there any character that has a really different rig?
Yeah, there is. Let's see. We could do um why don't we do one of these shattered guys? Actually, let's do the construct. The construct is one of my favorites. This was probably the most in-depth rig we've got. Because this is a completely from scratch
Mhm.
rig. Because he's very, very different than the anatomy of a lot of our other characters. So we have this very this stone robot essentially. So I kind of had to take Mitch's concept that you can see here, this guy, and make sense of how can you see the Miro?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Make sense of how do these joints work? What exactly is going on here in a practical sense? So I had to take a few liberties and create this sort of ball and socket situation for the shoulder here, and then also in the collar, this um, this sort of mechanism was, again, it comes down to character. If the character is designed well, there's always a solution to the problem. And because this character has so many rounded shapes, it was a challenge. But the anatomy of this character gives me so many ideas for how he would move. These big giant hands, he's obviously going to smash. He's got this tiny lower body. So he's going to use his upper body a lot. He's going to be very, very like forward with his shoulders. So uh, a lot of these animations, I think we've got let's see, we'll do yeah, this guy. Where did this go here? Sorry. A lot of these animations are very like um, focused on the hands and fist. There and his overall weight was something that I really wanted to play with because he's big. He's about 5 times taller than you are. So I wanted to make sure he felt weighty and impactful. So you've got these really big smashes and turns. Um, let's see what else. And then this charge. This was one of my favorites to do. Just having him drive that shoulder through it was just so much fun to think about like how these attacks would actually affect the player and what they would look like and how quickly and all those different elements came together. And I love the problem solving behind all of those elements of the design and the character and all these different things. So
Got
um
a technical animation question from chat. State of
mhm.
Survival podcast asks, what tools do you use in Blender for the skeletons and rigging, or do you do it all by hand?
These are all by hand. These are all by hand. The reason being is I learned to do it by hand before I learned the other tools. and I haven't really had time to learn the other tools. I am actively in the process of getting into control rig a lot. And because their procedural rigging tools in there are just absolutely incredible, and the things you can do just in control rig by itself that you would have to really be adept at Python and scripting in Maya or even Blender here to get some of those behaviors. Um, the tools are becoming more and more amazing. So I've put my energy in what I'm learning in a new space is purely in Unreal. But I haven't. I know there's a bunch. I think there's like Rigify and all these different tools out there. I can't vouch or not vouch for them. I haven't really used them. But all these rigs are built by hand. Just because I don't want to waste any time. I know how to do it, and someday I will learn maybe some of the other tools and improve my process. But for the time being, the by hand process just gives me a lot more flexibility, I think, in terms of what I know these things need to do. Um, yeah, that's sort of the maybe not the best answer, but that's the answer I've got. um,
Kind of game
but
development
actually,
in a
what I
nutshell.
can do, yeah, right. But what I can do as a segue, I did have this up just in case, is show you some of the control rig stuff that I have learned in Unreal, which would be a lot of this stuff would be so difficult to do in Blender, but is made so easy by Unreal Engine, which is a lot of this secondary motion type stuff where this thing is made of water and he's very powerful, and um, we want to make sure that we can get this really great secondary motion. And ultimately, what I really want, spoiler alert, is that he'll follow you around as you move the same way the spirit anchor does. Um, because we really want that life. We want them to be aware of you in the world. And just something as simple as eye contact changes everything when you're in a space. Um, on the other end, we have this new enemy here um, that is also using control rig because fish are notoriously difficult to make look good. But control rig allows us to create a bunch of great secondary motion with one control. Um, and so this new character is all control rig. So when you see him swimming around in game, I think you might even see him do some really weird, like wild, wacky stuff for the time being because we're still kind of ironing a few things out. But ultimately, I'm really happy with the way this has come together and looks. We're going to be using this a lot. Is all I'm saying. Because this is just so cool to me. I love doing this. This is the first time I've ever used this, and it's such a blast to mess with these tools. Um, and there's just I props to Epic for giving so many wonderful samples because you can learn so much from digging into their into their provided samples and their projects. Um, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff going on behind the scenes with some of these characters.
Yeah, it was already fun to see a couple of the jump scares happening, even with the slightly more rudimentary version of these enemies in game.
Yeah,
I mean, just
I got a big glow up on the next playtest.
just three
yeah.
weeks ago, this dude was a literal tube with the face of another creature
Mhm.
glued on the front.
Yeah.
So this is
Oh,
a
yeah,
big
Devastating.
change.
this guy's gonna be coming at you pretty hard here. He's gonna be swimming at you and he's gonna bite you. So
There
be
was
ready.
a another question in the chat, also from State of Survival
Mhm,
podcast. I have a feeling they're
mhm.
very into animation. Um,
Okay.
Nerd Mind now. How is the weight
Uh-huh.
painting factoring in?
Uh, I do it all in Blender. Yes, it's a good question. I do all of the um, so for this guy, I did not make a rig in Blender. I just brought in the static mesh, built a skeleton, skinned it, and then brought it into Unreal and rigged it in there. But the skin weights are super important. Um, it's also really important to know what you would want control rig to do. You'll notice he has these fins here, these little finny boys. I don't have any controls for that simply because I'm lazy, and I could go in, but I did what I did do is I have bones in there because I know that when he swims, I would like them to have secondary motion. But I don't have any controls there, so I knew when getting into control rig that I did want to have secondary motion on those objects, even though I didn't want to spend the time to actually animate them. So having a plan ahead of time on the way you would like things to move is really, really important. And to your question about skin weighting, making sure things are like I had to pretty carefully because I don't have as much control with the individual controls on this guy. I did have to be very precise with the way I was painting blend weights here so that there was no stretch like any bizarre stretching. Especially we see like with this right here, the spines right here, this is where one of the like the bone influences kind of blend right here at this spine. So it's like I could have maybe done that a little bit better, but I think I got close enough. Um, so it's just yeah, having a plan before you go in, especially with control rig, if you're not going to be like it saved me a lot of time doing this, obviously, but being meticulous with your skin weights and your bone placement and your anatomy is really, really important. Because I also have bones for these fins as well, so that when he does this, they have secondary. You see, they kind of lag behind on the bottom right there. Um, so that we get even though it's procedural, I have some control over the way these individual pieces of the character are moving.
Awesome. We also have some actually some questions that were pre-populated in the dev stream questions channel.
Okay,
This
cool.
one might be a little bit of combo feedback question. Um,
Okay.
but it says, are there any plans to change the wood chopping animation to horizontal instead of vertical? So I wonder if you want to talk even about like why you kind of chose the direction for it. Um,
Yeah. Again, it's a lot of it is biggest bang for the buck. I think, I'm the only animator, one of three artists on the team. We've got to find ways to be efficient and have things be readable. Um, the reality is the axe actually doesn't have any distinct animations outside of the pickaxe. They use the exact same behaviors. Um, the only reason it has a vertical chop is because it's using the pickaxe animations. But to answer your question, yes. The art director, my brother, has informed me that we must change that, and we will be changing it so it is more believable. We might even go as far as to blend between a vertical and a horizontal based on what you are chopping, just to make you happy. All for you. Um, we'll read what type
my
of
immersion.
we might try and do that just because it's cool. But otherwise we would stick because we want to be able to have vertical trees and driftwood is such an important part of being on a beach. We want to be able to have wood on the ground and not have be stuck with just a horizontal slice because that would look even stranger than just a vertical one. So we kind of have committed to the vertical one right now because I think it is more immersive than just having a horizontal at the moment. So, but yeah, there are plans to judge that up a little bit and make it a bit more real life.
uh,
Awesome. And oh, do you want to go for the next one?
no, I was gonna add on because I feel like this is probably from the playtester's angle. I don't know if anyone in the chat has not already signed up to playtest the game, but you should totally do that. I know the demo's right around the corner, but like we'd love for you guys to playtest the game and actually just see this stuff in game. But talking about how uh, Andrew's like thought process for the giant ancient golem for the fish, I think you guys can probably quickly start to feel like how intricately tied like the game design choices and functionality is to the visuals. If suddenly like that fish had to like hover and swim backwards, Andrew would probably be like, "Oh wow, this dude has to do all sorts of different things visually. Like my ability to control that needs to be super different." So these are all kind of like different parts of the same problem, all part of the
Hmm.
same like end thing of like as a player, is this cool? Like, does this make sense? Is it exciting?
Yeah, everything is connected. Everything is tied to another. So yeah, it's really really important that a lot of the systems needs are very, clearly known, so that, for me on my end, if I need to know exactly what is expected out of a character so that I can create a rig that supports that, one of our we have new enemies that are going to be added relatively soon that are completely different than anything else we have in the game. And um, you know, I need to like this attack. I need to know whether or not it needs to be able to be read and be able to be dodged. So do I add a pause in here? Is it too long of a pause? Is it too easy? How scalable can we make that? So there's a lot of things to consider when I'm animating, and Mitch is designing the character to support the effect that we want on the design side and to deliver that experience as uh, awesomely as possible.
Sorry, Steph, I interrupted your next question that you were going to read.
That's okay. A question about creatures. Will there ever be
Mhm.
docile creatures roaming about the islands of Nera? The fish, even if they are hostile, are a nice addition, but I'd also like to see birds flying over, other fish swimming by, creatures on land
Mhm.
grazing, etc. I feel like
Yep.
even though the ancients were destroyed, some semblance of life would have returned to the world.
You're 100% correct. Nothing would make us happier than to have little critters running around. We had, and we will, we have a boar that we wanted to add that would be both a kind of a neutral, kind of like the crab, but something that you could either, man, one day it'd be awesome to have farming and taming creatures and things like that. But for the time being, everything creature wise in the game, we prioritize the ones that are going to be affecting the loop the most, the crafting and progression loop. But once we've got all of that under control, we've got everything you guys need, we can probably add little bugs and geckos and neutral docile creatures just to add life to the world, because you're 100% correct. These ancients are these giant life-giving creatures that are long gone, but their effect is still very felt throughout the world. And it's created this world. All of the life on Nera is derived from those beings. So just because they're gone doesn't mean that Nera is dead. It's very much alive still. It's in peril, but something we really want to try to sell more and more of is how alive and real this place is. So critters and little neutral buds are definitely on the horizon. We just got to get there first.
Yeah, the recurring theme of "can we afford it" is one that comes up a lot. The callback to the last stream we did with Ben and Billy about audio, they're adding a lot of sort of like bird noises and insects as a way to sort of also create life,
Mhm.
and part of that is because that's a lot cheaper and it's more scalable. As a way to sort of like set an atmosphere than to, have like the visuals of like little creatures all around, because a lot of those would come at the direct cost of like enemies and gameplay in the world that you know Andrew's the one guy who's trying to get all of these guys
Yep.
to
And there's one other question that came up in the chat was, what about fish in the water as we fish?
Yes. We we've been actually I was toying with that a little bit last night with Ben. We have the we have the makings of it. We want to be very careful with when we put especially particles like that, because they can be relatively complicated sometimes. Fishes have a very distinct way of moving, and there's a lot of them, you know? So, because we want to do broad strokes first, we want to get like big schools of fish moving around in a believable way, and then you go into the details where we've got this deepling snapper enemy guy who's obviously going to be swimming around, but we need other native fish that are kind of distinct moving around as well. But we want to start with the kind of the broad stroke particles first, which we are actively working on, and it probably won't be in for the demo, just for safety, but we are planning and will have um, a lot of a lot more life under the water. That's something that I'm personally very passionate about and going to make sure happens.
Steph, were there other questions in the board, the pre-populated ones?
Nope, that was it.
Great, because we got 5 minutes left. And if people have questions in the chat, now's the time to ask them. Let me. While you do that, I'm also going to check our agenda and make sure we covered everything.
I suppose I'll stop streaming unless anyone opposes. I'll check. I think I will
But don't do the oop, he did the wrong button. I saw it. I watched it happen.
You were ready. You felt it
leave
coming.
the chat entirely. Just leave. I'll just leave. Fine. If you want me to keep
I tried
streaming,
to say it, but I didn't say it fast enough. I was like, wait, that's the hang up button.
that's it. You can see it happening in slow motion.
uh,
Nexus Cupcake, you got it.
Nexus
This won't be the
is
last one. I've got tons of characters and other stuff to share with y'all. I'm very excited to get into the fine details with you guys.
there's maybe there's worth its own dedicated one of some of like the environment look of like water and the sunrise and sunset and like the clouds in the sky, because I feel like every playtest there's always some clip of people like pausing and like taking in the sunset and stuff. So I feel like it would just be pretty universal to hear about like how that was made, what kind of iterations have happened to it over time.
So we
Yeah,
got one question.
there's definitely a whole dev stream to that one.
We got two questions, but Billy, I'm gonna skip yours. What's the most exciting thing you are each individually looking forward to for this project?
Mm.
Underwater. Having underwater be a critical part of your progression through the world, and I think there's something very human about being on the ocean that is both exciting and terrifying. It's the sweet spot of survival crafting. Is is that exciting, scary space, and that's what the ocean is to me. Especially when you're out there, you know, it's what's below you and what's in front of you, and I would love to explore what's below us and make that something exciting and impactful. I'm really excited about that.
How about you, Steph?
I think that I'm probably most excited actually for some of our upcoming biomes. I think it's really cool to kind of like explore all of these like different big and very like ecologically different places around the world, and I'm excited about like the experience of like sailing to them and the things you'll find on the ocean on the way. So I think that's what I'm most excited about for the project, is kind of like, because I think we have a pretty cool set of biomes planned, and they're all like really different and like interesting, especially the final one.
I think mine's close, but not quite the same as Andrew's actually. But because I do think there's a lot to seafaring that is sort of in like the mystery and danger of our world in particular. But for me, a lot of that sort of comes together when you're like as a group sailing from like, your biome to the next. So that moment of like panic when you realize something's underneath you, stuff to do in the ocean. Some of the most fun moments
Mhm.
for me right now are like when people realize for the first time that those Urchling mines are alive and that they will track toward you when you get too close. So having more moments like that, that's sort of like out in the open ocean, that kind of surprises you with them being a little horrifying or a little dramatic, is definitely some of the high moments that I want to explore more.
As for people excited about underwater content, we definitely heard a lot of that in the playtest feedback too, and there's going to be some cool surprises in the demo, so you should definitely come check them out.
And to answer Billy's question,
Oh,
to resurrect Billy's question, I think my favorite character so far to animate has been the little tiny spirit guy. Him falling asleep was such a fun animation to make.
Fury had a great clip of that yesterday while we were all like talking and trying to figure out what to do at the boat, and the little guy was just sleeping, and I had this reaction. I was like, "He's slacking off. What is he doing?"
It's a fun little detail to be looking around and just see him living is just my favorite feeling.
um, we've
There it
talked about some of the like magical world and like Miyazaki ref to some of that, and it's just like the cute little critters that are just sort of like have this whole life is such a central part of that vibe.
Oh yeah. It's incredible that you guys have picked up on the exact references that and the spread of references that I know Mitch has, having grown up with him. It's incredible that everyone's feeling it. It's really, really, I assure you it makes him feel great because it's all of our favorite stuff and it inspires us every day, and to be able to lend a little bit of that to the game is just really, really special and fun for us to do.
Yeah, it's a cool feeling when you like you make something feeling a certain way, thinking about like what's important, and then the person on the other end also feels that, and you're like, ah, like we sparked the
Yeah.
connection between
Yeah.
our two worlds. It's like a cool feeling.
Someone
Mhm.
said Crash Bandicoot at one point, like a couple of months back, and Mitch was like, "Whoa."
How? How did you pick that one out of there? Yeah.
It's funny, yeah. Just somewhere subliminally, someone felt it.
Good. I'm glad. That's good stuff. That's the best stuff.
Yeah. All right. That brings us to the end of the stream. Uh, Andrew, really appreciate getting to hear the deep look.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the next topic and the one after that. And there's probably
Mhm.
just like a fun enemies one too at some point.
Oh
Maybe
yeah.
maybe get you and Tim like can combo that. But yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
a lot of different content we can crack into. Guys,
Yeah.
thank you
Thank
so
you
much for
all for
tuning
being
in.
here. Yeah, absolutely.
Really fun to chat with you
Looking.
guys. And we're gonna let you all go, and then we're gonna probably do our next podcast. Sorry, just reading State of Survival podcast name. Our next stream, uh, likely the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, because our regular schedule would be right on Thanksgiving, and so we're a bunch of Americans
We'll
on
be
this team, so
asleep.
that's probably not going to be the best time. Cool. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it, and hope you everyone has a good night.
Yeah. See you guys later. Bye.
Bye, folks.